I will now mute everybody. Good evening. Welcome to the
Please turn on your video.
155th monthly meeting of FOSWEL. FOSWEL stands for Friends on Same Wavelength, and this meeting is of FOSWEL Hyderabad chapter. FOSWEL has chapters in different parts of India, and it was founded in Cupertino, California by Mr. M.L. Swami about 20 odd years ago. So we are completing 13 years with our meeting in December. Good to see all of you. Without much ado, let us begin the meeting, and I'd like to call a young engineering graduate from IIIT, Sanket Uppalapati, to read the prayer to kick off this meeting.
Yeah.
Sanket.
Hello. Yeah. Hello, everyone. This is Sanket. I've done my BTech in civil engineering and my MS by research in building science from IIIT Hyderabad. And currently I'm working as a software developer for Micron Technologies.
Very good.
I'll start with a prayer. Heaven of freedom, where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where the knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where the words come out of the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom, my Father, let my country awake.
Thank you, Sanket. This is the prayer which is read by at the beginning of all FOSWEL chapters all over the world. The last 20 years, we have adopted this. Thank you. We now have Mohan. Ram Mohan is his full name. As you can see, Ram Mohan Chukkapalli. He is the grandson of Mr. Nallamuthu Subbarao. He is based out of New Jersey. He lives in Monroe Town. And he's from the pharmacy field, but he is currently in sales and marketing. He went to Mississippi University. He will share a few snippets of his grandfather, Sri Nallamuthu Subbarao's life and work. Mohan, can you unmute yourself and speak, please?
Thank you, Subbarao garu. So over the last couple of weeks, as I was thinking about, what to say about a man about whom a lot has already been said in many situations, I thought of a couple of themes, but I think the word that comes to mind is servant leader. So if I think about three themes that come as the best memories, both personally, but also as recalled in anecdotes talking to different people. It's his obviously technical competence. Goes without saying that as an engineer, he knew what he was doing, so to speak. I remember as a child, there was a huge black and white picture of close to 200 students, I think. And this was a picture taken on the campus of Gindi College in Madras. And that was the one that kind of prompted me to ask about, what that picture was. And then that led into stories about, how he was known as Engineer Garu in, essentially the entire area in and around Tenali. And of course, his work at Nagarjuna Sagar. So from a technical standpoint, that was kind of the inspiration. I mean, most places that I went to, I was known as Engineer Gar Manadu. So There was no escaping that, and it was a badge of honor. The second that comes to mind is empathy. One of the stories that, as I was talking to my mom a few days ago, that she was recalling was when there was some massive floods near a small village, that was affected by the Godavari River. When a lot of other officers were quite hesitant to, get into the danger zone. Apparently, Tataya, commanded a boat and went in the floodwaters to go check up on the villagers affected by the floods. And that is not something that you typically associate, a so-called, impartial, objective government officer to do, to get so involved with the people that he or she is supposed to serve. So that's another thing that kind of, stuck in my head. And the third is vision. Apparently, many years after Tataya passed away, there was a postcard that arrived in the mail from a small village, and they said we want a picture of Subbaraw that we want to put up in our village because we want to recognize some of the great things that he did. And I thought that's interesting. Maybe he helped build a bridge or a dam or whatever the case was. But actually, that was not the case. He actually made these people save in those days 5 rupees a month, put that aside as savings so that they would be set for a rainy day. And that is something that was a concept that they had not entertained prior to that. And again, that was not in his job description, but he chose to do it, and it was quite striking. So these are the things about the person. But if I reflect upon my own personal memories, one of the things I think through a stroke of a combination of circumstances is his end of life years, were spent in our house in Warangal. And so I had a chance to, see him personally, and wonderful memories of a lot of friends coming, reminiscing. But what I'm thinking about is for somebody who lived such a life, to deal with some of the end of life effects of diabetes, some of the complications, whether it was the sight that got affected quite badly towards the end, the grace and the dignity with which he handled that just stays with me forever. So that's something that I just wanted to say. And my brother is on the line, so I have to, I wasn't going to mention this anecdote, but I have to say this. My brother had quite the short temper, when when he was a kid. I think he's mellowed now with with a couple of older daughters. I think he's mellowed now. But and when he got into trouble with my tataya, he was the one at fault, and he was supposed to apologize. And so my mom was quite insistent that my brother apologize. And my brother was so stubborn that he stood in front of my granddad and cried, but refused to apologize. And guess what Tataya said? He scolded my mom, not my brother. He said, "What are you doing picking up a fight with a little kid? You should know better." So what's the meaning of a sorry of a kid who is crying? And so he comforted my brother and sent him on my way. So just, and so many countless memories like that. But in the interest of time, just want to say thank you so much for this opportunity. Truly an honor. Back to you, Subbaraw garu.
Thanks, Mohan, for making it so interesting and so personal, I would say. The goal of FOSWEL is to celebrate the golden years of its members and, provide a platform and an opportunity to dignify their life and work. And I think in the way you described the various facets of your grandfather, you brought that out very well. It's often said parents teach their child skills, but they learn the wisdom from their grandparents. So it looks like the anecdotes that you mentioned truly epitomize that. Thank you for waking up early in the morning in New Jersey to join us. I hope you will join the future meetings. We have one every third Saturday of every month, third Saturday of every month. So whenever you get a chance, please do join us.
Definitely.
Mrs. Adilakshmi just now cautioned us, if the entire Nallamuthu family were to join, then the screen would be full of Nallamuthu. And somebody who's been very close to that family is our distinguished speaker this day. And he's been one of our members of Foswell Hyderabad right from the inception. He has got so many accomplishments, that can be talked about. But who better than Subramaniam from the Nallamuthu family to tell us a little about Professor Murali Krishna Iyenki, our distinguished speaker for today. Subramaniam garu.
Yeah. Thank you, Subbarao. Good evening, President of Foswell, Foswellians, and all other invitees. It is an honor and privilege for me to introduce a distinguished academician, Professor Murali Krishna Iyenki. Professor Murali Krishna Iyenki has an impressive and illustrious academic record, having obtained his PhD from the premier Indian Institute of Science, IISc Bangalore. He was the Dr. Raja Ramanna Distinguished Fellow at the Defense Research and Development Organization, DRDO, India. He was the National Coordinator for Geospatial Public Health, which is a national networking project for the Government of India. He worked as faculty at various institutions, including IIT Madras, scientist at ISRO, and professor and founder head of the Center for Spatial Information Technology, CSIT, at the Jawaharlal Nehru Technological University during the period 1990 to 2005, where he later headed it as its director during the period 2005 to 2008. Professor Murali Krishna has traveled wide and far and has served in various academic positions in various countries. To name a few, he served as a guest scientist at German Space Research Institute, DLR, and GKSS Research Center, as Professor of Excellence at Chiba University, Japan, Adjunct Professor at the Asian Institute of Technology, Bangkok, and Summer School Faculty at University of Dundee, Scotland. Professor Murali Krishna was the editor and member of editorial board of several peer-reviewed science and technology journals. His research areas encompass not only purely academic pursuits, but also applications of social relevance, like development of models to predict the spread and the impact of COVID pandemic. He is a member of the Smart Village Board and is presently working with the Haas School, Berkeley, California, USA, as India Academic Programs Director. His present projects and research topics are on open innovation, artificial intelligence, and geospatial population and public health management. He has been a member of Foswell Hyderabad almost from its inception. With these few words, I have great pleasure in presenting to you Professor Murali Krishna Iyenki, who will deliver the annual endowment lecture in memory of my father today. Thank you.
Thank you, Subramaniam, for that, I would say, a very short encapsule of Professor Iyenki's illustrious career. I think most of us are aware that one of the challenges that faces the world is the gap that exists between the research and academic fora and the ability to bring it into mainstream and implement it on the ground. And I think Professor Murali Krishna is working in that critical area He is bringing these three, the scientific research area, the academicians, and the rural folks. And he has done that for healthcare in that national project for the government of India earlier to that in the GIS. He has given many talks. I think very recently in the Institution of Engineers, if I remember correctly, a few days ago. So it's a honor to host one of our own members to deliver this annual endowment lecture of another illustrious man. And I must compliment Mr. Prasad and Sucheta for having set up this endowment to make sure that the good work of Sri Nalamuthu Subbarao continues to inspire others. With that, I now invite Professor Murali Krishna to deliver the endowment lecture. The floor is yours, Professor Iyengar.
Thank you.
Sir, can I say?
Yeah, please
No.
reserve your
No.
questions to the end.
And,
And you can put in
yeah.
your questions in the chat box. Let the speaker finish his talk and presentation, please.
I think he wants to say a few words about Dr. Murali.
No, I think,
We'll come to that later. We'll come back.
Later,
Yeah.
later. Dr.
Yeah.
Subbarao. So,
Go ahead.
Dr. Subbarao Garu, from the chief architect of the entire programs of Foswell in Hyderabad and rest of the branches in the country and abroad. And it is indeed gratifying to see the opportunity for me to address on as an endowment lecturer of an important person, as stated by our engineers Manavadu, Ramamurthy Chokkapalli. And it is indeed a great coincidence that he has mentioned that there are three themes as the best memories. And one of them is technical competence. The second one is the empathy, and some villagers asking for the picture of the eminent engineer Nalamuthu Subbarao Garu. All my respects to the eminent engineer, and indeed I had a great opportunity also to meet Nalamuthu Subbarao Garu at his residence, and I could visualize and I could imagine the amount of his expertise and his commitment to any program he takes forward. After that, I am indeed grateful to Mr. Nalamuthu Muchinjay Prasad, N.M. Prasad, and Dr. Sucheta, and then Dr. Nalamuthu Subramanyam from REC Warangal, and Koteswar Rao, Adi Lakshmi, and other members. Please forgive me if I'm missing somebody, Vandana, and others. And I consider it is a great opportunity to share whatever the programs being held under this theme Smart Village Movement for the next, let us say, 40 minutes, as mentioned by Dr. Subbarao. Indeed, as already said by Dr. Subbarao, he has said we are trying to celebrate the golden years of the members, and as a consequence to this particular thing, you may recollect that India has specifically there are about 650,000 villages in India, where roughly about more than 1.2 billion people live. And how these benefits of the technology can reach them. See, there are several aspects if you look into the technological development, the technology has been developed very rapidly. Like the satellites are launched, atomic explosions have taken place, and newer software and hardware platforms have been developed. But the extent of the ability of the people to utilize this technology and get benefited by this technology is not commensurate with the developments. So I differ this particularly this difference between the technological growth as well as the Now, I mean, lot of gap in utilization of the technology as the exponential paradox. And how we can build this exponential paradox is an issue. I think I need to share my screen. Am I eligible to share the screen? Are you seeing my screen?
Not yet.
So Baravar, I think
We have to orient towards green screening my. Did you give me power to host? Make me the host to have the screen, please.
Sir Muralikrishnan, I think,
Yeah, we can see the. Yeah, we can see the screen.
yeah.
Which is not my screen. I am seeing somebody's screen. I am seeing Somsekhar Rao's screen. Please make me host. Yeah, I think no. Could see the screen?
Yeah, we are able to see.
Yeah, okay. So we are as we are talking about the application of the technology and making the gap and addressing the issues of the more than 650 people from the villages, how we can empower the population. And building the smart villages by empowering population, people is the chief objective of the smart village movement. Essentially, we cannot solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them. That's what Albert Einstein says. That means we need to go for out of the box thinking. And we have to think what exactly is the problem, what are the pain points, what are the gain points if a technology is applied, and how do we address them? It is not the question of technology pull, but it is a question of technology push. That means we need to apply the technologies, bring the technologies which are needed by the people. Not that whatever technology is developed, thrust on the people. It may not be out of context if I mention here. It took almost 30 years for the radio invented by Marconi to reach the homes. For the first 30 years, it is used as a means for communication between the land and the ship. And that electricity, the telephone, they all took almost 2 to 3 decades before they are accepted by the society. But today, during the last 20 years, the mobile phone, etc., they're all accepted within a span of 3 to 5 years. What is the reason for this? This is the difference between technology push and technology pull. People are not looking for the technology at that time. Nobody is looking for a radio, and radio was invented and thrust on people. Today, people are looking for communication, and the mobile phone has been brought into the people accepted it. That is the difference between technology pull and technology push. So we have to look into this aspect of the application of the technology, what type of go for the entire spectrum of the technologies and match with the needs of the rural people and what they are looking for and how these technologies can meet their demands. So technology pull makes the most important concept. So we all heard with the features like smart village. When I say smart village, or somebody says smart village, people think it is smart infrastructure. Ultimately, smart village means smart cities, means roads, communications, etc. Here, our emphasis is not smart infrastructure. Smart infrastructure is taken care by the people, by the government. But can we think about application of the technology and make the people smart? Here, the smart people is our goal. That means empowering the people. That is what exactly is the issue. So our definition of smart village is not providing roads, sanitation, etc., but empowering the people. That is what is the most major difference between the 99% of the smart concepts that are being evolved all over the world are different from our team. So it is a community empowered by technologies and open innovation platforms across global markets. That is one of the objectives. And the vision is building smart villages by empowering the people and to increase the happiness of the villagers. That is what exactly is that. How do you increase the happiness of the villagers? By creating sustainable economies. Economy is one of the most crucial things as an individual, as a villager, how we can bring this technology to improve his economy. So these are core values: open innovation, co-innovation, collaboration, empowerment. Here, innovation is different from invention. See, we're all familiar with essentially the concept of, if I ask somebody who has invented the telephone, everybody will say Thomas Alva Edison. No, it's not Thomas Alva Edison. Everybody will say telephone, the Graham Bell. The electric bulb, Thomas Alva Edison; telephone, Graham Bell. These are the words which we always say. But if you look into the actual development, before Thomas Alva Edison, about 30 people have invented the electric bulb. But nobody has brought it to the house of the individual. It is Thomas Alva Edison who brought this bulb to the house of the individual by bringing, in New York City, by putting the electric poles, power cables, power switches, etc. And he brought light. The people want light. People doesn't want bulb. So that is the essential concept of the innovation. That is the difference between invention and innovation. Same thing for telephone, because what we are reading for the telephone are the photography, Eastman color, Eastman, and the press, the automobile. They are all what we are reading and what actually invented, they are different. But there are people who are invented, there are people who have got innovated. So who are innovated are not inventors. Innovators are the people who have seen the pain points of the public and how to make use. Like Thomas Alva Edison, he saw that people need light and he saw already a bulb is available and how he can make it suitable for the people. That is what exactly is a concept here. And we define several things like community is a smart, basically it's a people of coexisting. A village is an ecosystem, village is a brand, village is a business model, village is a digital platform. So if I look at the village, it has got so many connotations. It could be a group of people. It's not just a simple group of people. It's an ecosystem. Everybody depends on others. It is a brand. And it's a business model. There is a lot of business applications are there, and the digital platform facilities, they're all there. So while doing these things, we are looking into the concepts of price and value. So this is the segment which is predominantly met by the rich people because it has got very high value and high price, no problem about it. And low price, low value, it doesn't meet the needs. It cannot bring the reformed changes anywhere. What is needed is here. We need low price and high value. How do we do it? So this is where it's hard to achieve without innovation. And this is where the innovation makes all the difference. The open innovation, co-innovation, I will have to skip it because though I put it in the slide, I just want to quickly go through some of these things. While talking about these things, simple thing, closed innovation is a process in which you never allow others to come into your organization, your group, your laboratory for thinking, and you organize the thought processes. And it's like you'll have a lot of false negatives. False negatives means so many things will be happening and you will not say what is happening. That is what exactly is the closed innovation system, and where the market application of technology, they're all single and focused on a particular issue. So while doing these things, so the example of the Xerox Palo Alto Research Center is a very good example of the closed innovation. They have invested so much money and employed so many people, and each one has invented so many products, and Xerox refused to patronize them, and each one has left. And that is how the company like Adobe and other Microsoft group of companies and the products of Steve Jobs, they all came from Xerox group of people. That is the open innovation concept. Open innovation is the use of purposive inflows and outflows of knowledge to accelerate internal innovation and expand the markets. This is Henry Chesbrough, professor at Haas School. He is considered today as the father of open innovation, and it is a great opportunity to sit with him and talk to him and address the issues being faced in India as a part of this innovation. I mean, as a part of the development of the processes. So this is where the open innovation. Earlier you have seen there is only one product coming up and this is how the market, but there are other products have come up. So this is where how we can bring these type of changes, these technologies, these applications to the people is what matters. Essentially, while taking those things, while established manner, we have a ecosystem. Look into the what you call as there are several ecosystems related to the agriculture, education, healthcare, household, energy, transportation, security, entrepreneurship, employment. All these things are there. So we're just considering one or two ecosystems here. Agriculture, it's the farmer's journey. So basically, the farmer looks for from getting high quality seeds and to a good price to his product. So what journey is making from these three things and address the issues and empathy, as our the grandson of Subbarao Garu said. So empathy is as pertinent component of Subbarao Garu, and here empathy plays a very, very significant role in this. Empathy is nothing but observing the pain points, what is happening, how do we address these points. So there is what is called as diagnostics, description, prediction. So these are all common things, but you need to also give a prescription. Those are the things what are needed while talking about these things. And we're just giving an example of smart village programs, outputs in general, and some sort of methods that are followed, a broad overview of things happened during the short time. And we had interaction with the government of Andhra Pradesh, government of Arunachal Pradesh, government of Meghalaya, and the several education institutions from all over the country. Many students participated in addressing the points, getting the solutions under the overall guidance of the HAS Berkeley and some other in global institutions. Here you are seeing, first we make a footprint of the village. So this is a footprint, how in agriculture, how much percentage it has taken, growth is there in that village, education, how much is there, energy, how much is there, livelihood it is there, health is there, internet facilities, security, transport. Like this, we make a village footprint. As you see here, the agriculture is only 40%, remaining things are all 60%. So this footprint gives you automatically, this village has got this particular concern for development, and how do we address this, how do we take forward what matters, and accordingly the plans are developed. So we took a holistic ecosystem. It starts from farming and agriculture, healthcare, education, water and sanitation, safety, logistics, and energy connectivity. So in simple words, the verticals are there, the pain points are there, and there are many global companies who are looking for opportunities to enter into the Indian market, wherever it is. So give them an opportunity to come here and see how they can utilize, establish their own companies, their own make the products, and train our own people and create employment and empower them with the technologies. That is there are more than 60 companies which are working, which are aimed to work, and some companies are already committed, some companies are being really approached. How do we make forward? That is what exactly is the issue. So agriculture ecosystem, like these ecosystems have been made, starting from agro advisory, credit, input, growth maintenance, post-harvest markets. So basically these are the cycles. A farmer needs advice, then he gets money to get the basic tools and inputs, and where do you purchases, and how he grows, and what crop, and what is the post-harvest management, and what are the market linkages. So these are the address points which we take care. At every stage there will be a pain point for the farmer, and how do we address? Our team goes there and addresses the pain point and looks for the solutions through research, interaction, and particular deliberations with the academic community as well as the teaching, the industry. So this is what the triple helix framework: a government, research, and business. So government provides funds to research, research funds develop the products, and gives to business, and business company develops the products and pays taxes to the government. This is a triple helix system that is developed in Bay Area. So when during the World War II, when the American president wanted new technologies, he asked the Stanford and the Massachusetts MIT, as well as this University of California at Berkeley, to do research and get a thesis of all these scholars and not to publish any one of them. And then once this university said they have produced so many thesis copies, the US government asked all the industrialists to go to these universities and look into what type of research they have done, what type of products that can be used for commercialization. That was this turning point for the concept to launch the Silicon Valley at the bottom in one manner. Later, there were several developments taking place. That is a different context. So while doing the appreciation of these things, it says that triple helix, government funds the research, research gives products, products are sold, and government gets its money. That is triple helix concept is a very, very important concept for any issue related to the growth and development. So while our team goes to the villages to address the pain points, they get the data in a different format, different levels, and we all look into each data, go for what has happened, that is descriptive analytics, why it happened, diagnostic analytics, what will happen, predictive analytics. These three are very common things everybody will be doing, because nowadays even a computer software, if you give the data, it predicts something. But that is not sufficient today. The cyclone is predicted, the earthquake is predicted, the drought is predicted. That is what technology is giving. But we need what we can, how do we handle? This is the prescriptive analytics. This is where we are trying to concentrate. That is our strength, is prescriptive analytics. Address a problem and how can we make the example, the solution, the profit, the implementation of the program. So that means for every product process, there is what is called as a feasibility. Then first is desirability. Is it desirable? Once we have desirability, then think about the feasibility. After the feasibility, we think about the viability. These three things combined will go into the, while talking about the prescriptive analytics of the model. So this is where the design thinking concept of empathy. Design thinking is what exactly is built around empathy. It understands the people, asking the pain points, what do you really want? And define the product and ideate a particular idea. Once we identify the student, the pain point, then we define a solution and discuss with the people and get an idea and make a prototype of the product and test it. And if it is not good, go back, and it is like an iteration, feedback solutions, and ultimately go for what is called as agile management, design thinking, lean pad management, then agile management. These are the three phases for any product or a process to be worked, to be developed. While doing these things, the design thinking is a potential for innovation, exactly what total quality management did for manufacturing. So TQM is very popular today, but we talk about 6 Sigma, 9 Sigma, 12 Sigma, like that we talk. And here, design thinking has the potential to address for innovation of the addressing the pain points of the villages. So ultimately, that is the human-centered approach. These two things fit very well with the person on whose name today's lecture is being organized. And it is a great opportunity to quote these two things on this particular day. So while continuing these things, what are our objectives? Study the pain points of the villagers. That is how our team will go for the issues. Then develop village footprints, which you have seen it. Then the third one is conduct the research and surveys. And then we will partner, who will be the partners for this agriculture, or what you call as agriculture, health, energy, transportation, etc. Then scout for prevailing technologies. Then invite the selected technology firms. After technology scouting, we look into who are all the companies which are working in the technology and invite them and go for what type of involvement Combined sitting, combined involvement, combined discussion can take place from the data generated to develop scalable and sustainable business models. The business model is the key word to make the rural person, villager a happy person. We are not giving him any subsidy or anything. We are empowering him with technology, empowering him with the tools, empowering with the knowledge, and making him what is the way, do things right things to be done. So that is how he gets knowledge, and then the generate solutions, and ultimately work with the government, then ultimately we go for the government and equip the interested people and teams of the people, build the smart village movement and train the individuals. So these are all our objectives going one by one and take forward. So while doing this, for example, I just give you, we are in our project, which is currently being done in Meghalaya. There is a problem of the turmeric. Turmeric is one of the most important components, and the Meghalaya turmeric is a unique turmeric because it has the amount of the what you call as turmeric or something, its name. It is got very good value there in Meghalaya. So how these people can get benefited? So how can we responsibly source turmeric and create value-added products for global markets? How can we establish an innovative supply chain model to conquer the niche of using turmeric for pharmaceutical applications? How can we ensure to balance return on investment, return on community, and return on nature? So this is the problem of the turmeric, because the farmers who are cultivating, our team has gone, talked to them, and found they are all not happy. They are having several pain points. They are not getting returned. They are being harassed by the middleman. And then how do we address these issues is the main specific thing. And while doing these things, we try to concentrate on specific issues of empowerment. Then other one is potato processing. To stabilize and increase the income of potato farmers in East Khasi Hills. And basically, potato is grown there, and how there are 3 or 4 middlemen groups, they are taking all the advantages. Then how the farmer gets directly benefited. Then the farmer producing organizations, FPOs start, well, what we are suggesting is let the FPOs start their own processing units and get a good rate for the product they sell, and also get the money for the process they are handling, and so that they can get benefited in both the manners specifically. So that is what exactly is the issue. While thinking in these directions, so what are the pain points? Lack of knowledge about the scientific method of cultivation. So there are problems. How to protect the crop. Then how do quality degradation due to traditional ways of processing. So these are the 3 pain points which are faced by them. They are very keen. They are doing certain things, but they are knowledgeable. Certainly they are knowledgeable. The tacit knowledge is invaluable, but the way the tacit knowledge need to be implemented is not clear to them. That is where the smart village group will come into the picture. So the digital technologies, so many logistics, entrepreneurs assistance, sample products are displayed, cash on delivery, best service, like examples of these things. So we try to connect the global markets to the rural world. I have 2 or 3 examples I'll show there. And while doing these issues, how do you take things properly? We try to be creative, think out of the box, empathy, observation, asking the right questions, and pattern recognition. These are the components, specific components of the entire way they process the product, the customer satisfaction, the business development tools that are taken place. So innovation, essentially, you are all familiar. There is a product innovation, there is a process innovation. These are everybody knows about it. There is one thing important is customer satisfaction. Today, what is being looked at is customer satisfaction is one of the very, very important things. That is how do you keep the customer in the picture? That is if you look into the way iPhone is developed, every 2 years there is a model. Then other Galaxy models, every 2 years they model. So they develop the products and keep the customer in their loop so that the product is never outdated. They always have a latest product and latest process and meets the needs of the people, pain points of the people. That is one of the business models of the established by Steve Jobs and other people. So thinking those issues, can we do the similar jobs addressing the pain points of the villages? That is the crux of the problem. So while there is a research phase, pivoting phase, and scaling. So essentially, we need to do research. By after the pain point, we do research and apply the pilot certain technologies and go for the scaling. Scalability and sustainability are the keywords. If it's not scalable, because if I develop a product based on the data in one village, I should be able to scale it for the entire district, entire state, later if possible to entire country. So that is one thing. And also it should be sustainable. It's not that today it will happen one way, and how do we take these products, processes forward? That makes a lot of difference. So this process, interviewing pain points, then explore the solution, business opportunities, recruit interested technical firms. Those are the things which we are working and continue to work on these products, processes. While these things are happening, I give an example specifically related to agriculture. There is several areas, acres of area in East Godavari district of Andhra Pradesh. Water grid is one problem, coconut farms, rice crop, shrimp farming, soil damage, and illegal practices, high margin crops, cashew processing, storage facility. So these are some of the pain points when we interviewed and as we summarized, basically, whether it is supply chain or technologies of application or quality management, everything there is a problem in the East Godavari district. While doing these things, can we take up these issues? We had a talk with the government of Andhra Pradesh also with this. So the pilots of agriculture related companies, we had presentations to even Bill Gates sometime back, and Agrinos, Plantix, CFOG. These are all the companies which are involved, and they visited and they brought their technologies and we all make the analysis of the pain points and try to integrate what type of technologies which companies are handling. They can be brought here, they can be trained by the people, they can make the people happy and empower them and get them more prosperous. So basically, happiness index, farmers' pain points, you can see here, there are 4 lists related to the education. They are not educated, they don't know how to go for pre-harvest, they are not aware of the growth management and post-harvest. So here I'm telling, it's not that people are not aware, they're all aware, but it's not that they are doing in an optimum manner. There is a scope for increase, improvement of performance at every stage. That is what exactly that delta increase in their approach can bring them significant profit over a period of the years. So this ultimately, the happiness index by education started by the people, how the prevention, and what are all the companies and how the growths have taken place under each segment. Education, pre-harvest companies are here, growth and management companies are here, post-harvest management. So what does this curve say? So by involving all these companies at different stages for this farmer at different stages, he is getting his happiness index attains very high over the time. So that means it reduces the cost, it improves the time, it speeds the products to the market, and he shares the risk with all the other farmers, and the other yield is also significantly improved. While thinking about these things, some success stories. Big Hat is a company which has provided excellent education to the company, and storekeeping is ultimately it sells you entrepreneurs, basically starting in the village, some kirana merchants, and they get the products what the village wants. Suppose there is a kirana shop in a village and he wants a product which is not available in the village, but that shop operates with the known companies in the urban areas and gets the product and delivers to him. So it's not that the Amazon and all these things facilities are available in the country, in the rural villages. It is available only in the significant cities. So how do we can make how we can simulate the way Amazon is doing at larger networks to the local level, villages level. That is one of the very successful propositions at village. A villager wants i13 phone. It is possible for the company, the village, the store, Kirana merchant in the village to get it. So that type of empowerment has been given, that type of technology has been transferred it. This is one example of shrimp farming. So what happens in shrimp farming is they need a specific level of dissolved oxygen. If the dissolved oxygen goes below a certain level, the entire crop gets damaged. So they need a continuous information about those things. And we had asked the CFOG, and they put IoT sensors. Basically, he installs in his farm, and he's able to get real-time data from the pond, and he gets energy from solar panels. And ultimately, what exactly is happening? Suppose the DO level goes below a particular level, automatically the sensor here sends a call to the mobile phone of the farmer, and immediately he comes here and operates the farmer, operates the oxygen turning machine. If it is not, it can be also automatic. They create a generator. It has got two scopes. One is it automatically alarms the farmer about this lack of DO. Even if he's sleeping, he can come and within 10-15 minutes and do it, or else automatically it can ultimately switch on the tools, the processes to get the dissolved oxygen, the rotors operate so that oxygen is generated. So this is one very good example. Then Tringo, it is urbanization. See, in a village, one farmer has got 2 or 3 farmers has got all the equipment. There are more than 90% of the farmers who do not own the equipment. And this farmer who is owning the equipment, he just uses for himself, and rest of the time they are free. And then we made a list of all the equipment that are available and try to make an app so that if a farmer wants, who doesn't own any equipment, wants a particular product, a particular tractor or a particular farming equipment, he will ask for it. Then whoever a farmer is having that, immediately he says he will loan it for 3 days. And this fellow gets money for the products he is having, and the farmer who is not having gets the products at a very nominal cost without any middleman. So this makes also the villager happier. So that's how the people get much more advantages and happiness. So here the cashew farmer, there is no middleman in this cashew farming techniques, and how do we go for it? And then agriculture products, big hat, whatever products are needed, they deliver at home. So that is what exactly is the issue. And the Paperboard provides market access to local food entrepreneurs under Paperboard branding. So they make certain paperboards, and the Paperboard company gives the brand once after checking the quality. These are some of the issues where things can happen in a manner. See, for example, when Ratan Tata was driving in Bombay, he saw a family traveling on a two-wheeler and getting drenched in the rain. He got upset, and then he went to back his Tata Motors company and asked, can we do something for these people, these poor people who are traveling in the on two-wheeler and they cannot afford a car? Can we provide them a car at a cost of nearly a cost of a scooter? And everybody said no. Nobody accepted, said it's possible to do it. And he also contacted many international companies. Everybody said it's not possible. But he didn't leave it, because he is a man of passion. He's a man of compassion. He didn't leave any of these things. And he went back and he called 2 or 3 his close associates. He observed all the transport mechanisms. He took helicopter, he took scooter, he took three-wheeler, he took the electrical machines, the what you call as the fuel tank, and then the engine, from these 3 things, and assembled them and put a chassis and started testing, and it started working. That is where innovation doesn't mean you have to invent something. You look into surrounding your things, copy whatever is happening, bring them and reuse them, and use the products for a different application. And that's how the nano has been generated. The nano, there is a failure of the nano. Somebody will say nano is failed, not because of technology. It's failed because of the management thing, because government, the company said it's a poor man's car. Nobody buys a poor man's car. But there are many cars are purchased abroad from the nano company. That is a different issue. But what is important at this point of the time for us to note is the way Ratan Tata has developed the products out of what is existing and develop a new product that meets the people. That is a technology pull example. Technology pull is one of the greatest examples that has been created. So we are trying to here see how do we create market for the tomato, pineapple, banana farmers, so that they get a better rate. So we are not having, we are trying to avoid the middleman. The buyer and the farmer, they come together. We try to match them using the technologies. You basically, there is a platform created, on the platform, every farmer says how much he has produced, and the buyer says what he wants, and our team looks into these things and matches them. That is how the product of developed by these the villagers get real value without any middleman's involvement. So these are all several programs that are being added for the benefit of the farmer. A farmer's journey, agro advisory, these are the companies could be recruited, and the credit linkages, the input, so many companies are there, growth and maintenance, so many companies are there, post-harvest management is there, market links are there. So ultimately the farmer starting crying here has moved up to here and it makes happy. That is the essential thing here. He's happy here. The happiness index over a period of the time by the advisories, linkages, inputs, maintenance, post-harvest, market linkages has attained very, very satisfying limit. So customer satisfaction. See, we used to send 30 years, 40 years back a cover to somebody from India to US and wait for about a month to know whether the cover has received or not. The parcel which you have sent is received or not. Today, you deliver the product, and every 5 minutes, every 1 hour, you will be knowing where is the product. That is where the customer satisfaction. That means utilization of the technology. We should think about application of the technologies, utilization of the technologies, exploitation of the technologies for the growth of the people. That is what exactly is the issue. And there are several schemes coming from the government on these issues, and how do we address them? This is one of the important entrepreneurship empowerment, empowerment opportunities we have taken care here. Either creating jobs for the dropouts is one area, and Usha is one area, and StoreKing, we already talked about it. So this is what exactly is the issue: healthcare and technologies, securities from the Silicon Valley. So ultimately, the platform is one of the very important contributions of our smart village. A platform is nothing but a common place where the buyer and the seller puts their inputs in the software and puts there. Once they put it, a smart village team looks into these things and ultimately tries to match these requirements. Who wants what, who wants to sell, who wants to buy, and provide greatest opportunities, starting from the exploration of grand challenges and ultimately intelligent matching, on-ground feedback, discussion forum, and also people's rating. These are some of the issues which we had opportunities to talk about in platform features. So see here, problem solving, technology scouting, etc. So these are all the value propositions which we are handling. Ultimately, a business model is what is required, and health. These are all the platforms that are generated. So here, see, in Mori, there is a handloom industry. They make very good cloth, and these cloths are sold in the nearby area with a middleman, and he gets about 500 rupees, and he comes out and sells for 2,000 rupees. I myself inquired, a thing purchased at 500 rupees costs 2,000 once the broker brings to the market, and then he sells in a different manner. Here we have created a internet-based forum wherein the villagers put their products and tries to sell to rich people in US, rich Indian women in US, and they get excited and order the products. And there are more than, I cannot quote the number at this point of the time, a very good increase in the sales of the people of the products of the cloth merchants there. So this business model canvas is one issue, what we are talking, and I'm going to skip these things here. So either in Meghalaya or Andhra Pradesh, we have creating a business model canvas, and ultimately this is a single point of information available, value proposition, key partners, key activities, key resources, channels, customer relations, customer segmentation, cost structure, revenue structure. Once this sheet is filled, the product is finished, because everybody starts a business without any planning. Here we have got a plan for the startups. So villagers can create a startup company following the business models. So this gives a list of the companies which are shown, which are participating. Some of them are participating, some of them are interested, etc. And these are the universities providing the research capabilities. That is where we can think about the issues. So instead of talking in a linear step, well, if you make 30 steps, you go by 30 meters if you're traveling by linearly. If the end of linear thinking, I don't want to go in a linear manner. The moment I start in a non-linear manner, I cover the same 30 steps in a significant manner. It takes several times the issues you can see here. Ultimately, it covers the area more than 300,000 times, the same 30 steps. That means exponential thinking, end of linear thinking. It is not intelligent people. It is not the wisest people. It is not knowledge people that survive. It is only people who are adaptable to change. That is what Charles Darwin said. That is the essence here. Design thinking, adaptability to change. Once these two are accepted, I think the villagers can prosper in a greatest manner. So we had a lot of data. Let us build on the past, act in the present, and create a future for these villagers. That is my submission. And I think I'll stop at this point of the time and look forward some useful discussion.
Thank you, Professor Iyengar. That was very illuminating. I think quite a number of aspects and challenges you covered in those slides. Of course, you skipped some of them. Maybe they are more for an academic audience, but for a heterogeneous audience like us, that was sufficient to give an insight. So as I've said earlier, please post your questions in the chat box, and I will take them one by one. So let me start by asking you, Professor Iyengar, one question. What is the essential difference between Pura, P-U-R-A, started by President Abdul Kalam, and the present Smart Village program that you are working on? And what are their similarities?
Yeah, Pura essentially concentrates on provision of urban facilities in rural areas. Excellent roads, excellent infrastructure, energy, communication skills. We are not addressing any of those things. That is because that is to be provided by the government sector. Here our concept is start from the root. The concept of smart village movement is making the person empowered with knowledge, whether if he wants to develop his skills, how he can earn more money by learning new tools, by expanding his business. So there is, both are important. They are not overlapping. One is infrastructure. It becomes village smart. The other one is empowering, which makes smart villager. That is the difference.
Is that still in operation, Pura?
Pura, I mean, there is the government programs that all, the names may change, but the concept is always there. Because ultimately these things, I may not tell you, because every government puts a different name. So we are not concentrating on the name, but the content, certainly the government of India, town and urban planning ministries, they all take about those things. And Ministry of Rural Development, they are all concentrating on those. Government concentrated more on infrastructure. It is necessary. It is their duty to do it. Right. It's not, and there has to be a provision. There has to be a scope for the villager to learn something to do better. That is what exactly we are trying. That gap has been found by us, identified by us, and we are trying to meet. So what we have done is not even 1% of what is to be done. What we have done is a very, 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 very insignificant part of the work done. But we are, on the way to go. It's not that we'll be able to do everything. We are just creating a model and it has to be replicated in different places.
Right. One more question which has come in is, there is a increased awareness or sensitivity around carbon footprint in today's world. So when in one of the slides you showed the produce of a village and the villager having the ability to sell it anywhere else through the logistic partners like Amazon and all, does it not go contrary to the concept of locally produced, locally used to reduce the carbon footprint by transporting these low value items to various geographies? How does the carbon footprint and climate change play into this model?
Right. The issue is if you look at the big picture, what you said is relevant. At the micro level, what we are trying to do is the villager, he has got specifically, let us say he's producing, he's trying to maintain farming, shrimp farming. He needs certain tools, certain equipment. Let us give an example. And then who will provide him those equipment? They are not available in his village. Then the person being trained by the Smart Village team, a good entrepreneur, gives an example of what he knows, what is available, where is available globally, nationally and globally. And he tries to get those products to the villager, to the person, and he helps them. It's not the question of ultimately products which were luxury. The products which are needed for his development are more in practice. That is what exactly is happening when we are talking about the farm equipment. And one of the examples I can quote is, we had a potato selling, there's a lot of potato waste, and the potato, if it is, instead of giving it to the market for selling, if they can cut it and make certain, what you call as chips, and give that to a branding company, that is what exactly is happening now, going to happen. The person gets more profits and avoids the wastage. And he avoids the wastage of the products. So these are the issues ultimately, and waste recycling is one of the components in which we are handling. For example, we train the students in engineering colleges where the electronic waste is there, and the students convert those high quality products into minor products like a doorbell, like some sort of a synthesizer. They use these things. So that means they are reducing the electronic waste, recycling, and producing products that are useful to the villager in general, in particular, and anyone in general. That is what exactly is the issue I wanted to address to you.
Thank you. Mrs. Sucheta wanted to know how a villager in any given village can approach this Smart Village initiative. I think that's what she was alluding to.
Right,
Yes.
right. Yeah, right. So it's not that we are an open system in general. They can ask something, we will be able to help them. But the whole thing, what is happening is, we are going to the state government and saying that we need data from the state government for the people. And we get that data. For that, government has to create certain facility. And if it is already products being developed in some of the states, there is no issue. In other states, suppose a villager wants a particular product like related to energy, waste management, etc. We need data. Once the data is available, we can certainly help any one of those people. Anyone. What is most important? The data is the oil for us. Once the oil is there, we can make any area fertile. It's a seed that will throw the data as a seed and get the product.
Dr. Sriramlu wanted to know what is the difference between a global village and a smart village?
It is all, I think, definition. Smart village also has got a lot of definitions. The way we are defining smart village is a village containing people who are smart. It's not the facilities smart. We are not concerned with any facilities development. Our focus is that is our definitions. We are not concerned with what is global village. All those things are certainly there are several things are happening. See, ours is a small, modest operation. Whether we can train, whether we can empower few villagers in a village so that they themselves become the nucleus for making the village much more happier and stronger. That is what exactly is the issue. There is one question from, I think, Subramaniam regarding Gandhian engineering. Am I right? I just happened to read.
No, I think he was recalling that we had Professor Mashelkar, R.A. Mashelkar, a few meetings ago, who spoke about Gandhian engineering, which had similar concept about open innovation training. He was drawing parallels between your talk and his talk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, to get more and more from less.
Correct.
Is the concept. And I have a talk on lean pad management and Gandhi engineering. The lean pad management introduced at University of California, Berkeley, also says reduce the wastage, monitor the progress, keep the customer happy, and provide your inputs to the minimum possible and maximize the output. So that is what exactly is the issue. And we could not realize what happened in the national level, our own solution like Gandhi engineering, but we talk more about lean pad management. These are all already in our culture are embedded, but somewhere they are missing. That linkages are missing, but we become stronger once we learn from other universities. When we say this is from University of California, Berkeley, oh, it's great, people think.
Well, for some of you who may not have a context, what we were discussing is Professor R.A. Mashelkar, Padma Vibhushan, who is the former Director General of CSIR. He addressed a FOSWEL meeting and he spoke on Gandhian engineering, more with less for more, as Professor Iyengar just elaborated. That was the topic. How technology can be made less expensive to serve a larger number of people. And Gandhian engineering is relevant to Indian context because our resources are limited. And I think Professor Iyengar's work also complements that concept, as I understood. So the next question is, yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
See, as a continuation of this, I gave an example of Ratan Tata. He has provided very simple inputs, which are lying somewhere already. He has not invented anything. He has brought all the products and made a car. That is the Gandhi engineering example. I call it as.
Right. I think you're familiar with Mr. Krishna Mohan from Saudi.
Yeah,
He's
right,
Mr. Subbarao's grandson. So he was wondering how the challenge of connectivity and education in rural areas. How do you deal with this in the while you are implementing the smart villages, because they are the building blocks?
Education is the key, and the path is the road. The way is digitization. So we are using the facilities from Salesforce like companies where digitalization, there's two independent words, as the main sources for the villagers getting educated. That is what exactly. There is no, see, for example, the concept of National Education Policy 2020 emphasizes the aspect of education, pedagogy, starting from pedagogy to entrepreneurship. Everything there is a chapter, everything there is a consideration. So this smart village movement draws heavily from NEP as far as education is concerned and implement it basically. And we are never said that we are the inventors of anything. We are just trying to implement at the ground what is to be done. So many people invent something, write a paper, write a report, submit it, get an award and keep it there. But we are taking that from them and try to implement at the ground level. And the education is one of the most important things, and including the awareness of COVID in Meghalaya, people were reluctant to go for COVID. And we have, our team has motivated house to house people, and they brought significant number, and which is commended by the Chief Minister of Meghalaya very much. See, the other one is in Meghalaya, the people doesn't like toilets inside the house. And when we're talking about the building infrastructure, they don't like the toilets inside the house. So that point is also brought into their notice. Why should be there? Why it should not be there? Those are the specific issues which we are handling in a phased manner on issue based. It's not that we are trying to have a model which can be replicated everywhere. Thank you.
Before I ask my next question, I was just thinking as you were mentioning this, we have on this call Murali. You can see him as Murali Mohan Jagarlamudi. And I'm thinking aloud here. He is a CEO, managing director of a company near Guntur. It's a rural belt. They set up this industry some 30 years ago, 30 odd years ago. And he also runs a school and college in the name of his father, JKC College, Kadamurli. It's a JKC College in Guntur.
Yes, yes. That's named after my grandfather.
Yeah. So to Krishna Mohan, Kuppuswamy Chaudhary, yeah. So to Krishna Mohan's point, they created a purely privately funded education infrastructure in a rural setting. So they created educated youth amongst the rural population. At that time, Guntur is a big town now. I'm talking about 30 years ago. And if you ever get a chance to visit his factory, you could be thinking you are anywhere in one of the large towns of India or abroad. It's so well laid out, well maintained, very high technology, reasonably high technology. So the people, about 1,000, 1,200 people work with him. Those people, those 1,200 families have benefited from a different level and lifestyle, safety, technology, so many skills which they are using in the plant automatically get transferred in their lives to their children. And since it is 30 years, I'm guessing it's about 2 generations or 3 generations of people have passed through this. So is that a kind of a very practical model, moving our industry, like the example of Tamil Nadu, Zoho? He is creating ripples across the world. It's a multi-billion-dollar valuation now. Any thoughts on that, Professor Iyengar?
So that is the essence of the open innovation. You get ideas from outside, absorb them, and implement them. If you cannot implement your own ideas, give those ideas to somebody, and that is implemented. So your product should not have a single market. That is your market. But once you throw out, there will be several markets can be generated. As far as JKC is concerned, I'm aware of this education system, and 2 of their scholars are my PhD students. Earlier, they finished long time back, some 20 years back. Their PhDs in computer science, image processing. So certainly, we are open. We love to do whatever is best available and bring it. We don't mind bringing it to. It's not that we cannot invent anything. We only identify what is best available, bring it to our focus and transfer it. So we go to different institutions, different programs like Apollo Hospital program, Shankara Netra in Guntur. We are trying to integrate with them. So we are Our windows are open to listen and to tell them. Those are the issues. Certainly, I love to meet them. Jagar Lamodi, Ram Prasad. No,
Murali Mohan.
Murali Mohan Garu. Certainly,
Yes.
I love to meet you, sir. Sometime I'll
You're most
come to you.
welcome. You can come to our college
Certainly, sir. I'll come to you, certainly.
and
I'll
when
be
you
glad
happen to be in Guntur, yes.
That's certainly, sir. I'll make it a special visit for you, sir. Definitely.
Thank you. Thank you.
sir.
Thank you.
The other question is, are there any models in other countries where this program of rural empowerment has succeeded? Comparable countries, not developed countries.
Right. So there is nothing like a model. There are instances of rural empowerment. We capture each one and we make the model. So there is no single model anywhere available. There is a particular group of people in, let us say, in China, how they are training people in electronic waste. That is what we are trying to implement. So we are trying to develop a model. We are not trying to invent any model. This model is nothing but a box by taking ideas from different people and keep it there. And that works more systematically. And we act as some sort of a mediators to bring the technologies, to bring the knowledge to the persons at the right place for their full exploitation so that they get the benefit. That is what exactly is our focus.
Okay.
Basically like facilitators, I think.
Subramanian sir, tell me.
Yeah, I think basically as facilitators.
You call it anything. We are facilitators, educators, thinkers, all those things. Everywhere there is a team. What exactly? So we think who are the best person. Our team sits on the net, and if there is a problem of pest, who are the best persons in the world who handle this problem? And then we talk to them. Then we apply our own methods. So global problems, localize them. Our team localizes them. So it is a mix of everything. We got a team of the issues, and wherever what is needed, we will do. It's not that we know everything. We don't want to do something we are capable. We may be capable more things, we may be capable less things. We are not interested. We always believe in doing what is needed.
Right. I think we have Professor Ram Mohan Rao Mendu also on this call. I had seen him. So he had spoken last time, alluding. He is the former Dean of Indian School of Business. He was the director of IIM Bangalore. So he's a highly respected academician. He talked a bit about how an academic institution can, impact the geography it's in, much like what you're doing. And of course, the topic was more about international recognition for these institutions also. So in that sense, just like you're working with University of California at Berkeley, do you see the institutions in India, especially now in the last 5-6 years, there's a thrust on creating more IITs, more IIMs, and various other designs, NID, in dispersed geographies within the country. Do you think they'll also demonstrate a spin-off benefit for our less urban areas?
Certainly, sir. They are more local. They understand the problems. So we had experience of people from different parts of the world working on this. Somebody came to Arunachal Pradesh and tried to do how to convert the bamboo into charcoal and how do you transport it, etc. And they missed the local points. Stevia is one of the examples. Stevia persons came to buy the stevia and the local farmers could not maintain the quality of the product, what is needed. So while doing this, we are continuously, our objective is to involve the Indian students. More than 30 Indian students from IIT Hyderabad, IIM Visakhapatnam, Pandit Deen Dayal University at Ahmedabad, and then Amrita University at Coimbatore, and I don't remember other universities. There are some, many university students. We call each student, we give a call, please participate in this particular program. The program runs like this. 2 weeks, we teach what is innovation, etc. And next 10 weeks, they can take any single pain point one pain point of any area and address that pain point, starting from value proposition, customer reaction, customer satisfaction, what technologies, key partners, key resources, what could be the resource, cost structure, what could be the return. Like a business model canvas is our goal. And we try to teach them what is lean pad management, design thinking, etc., and work on these issues. The students have done, I have shown you 2 products of potato and turmeric here, and the Lancaster model, UK, they have done on the bamboo issue. So we are interested, but my thinking is, actually if I get, we have got eminent persons like Ram Mohan Rao also is there also. So let the education institution students doing projects, whether they are in engineering sciences or pure sciences or humanities and social sciences, let each student do the, if not each, a group of few students, at least some percentage of students, concentrate on the problems of their area and apply the technologies. The same technology what is applied in Himachal Pradesh can be certainly applicable here. So that way we create a lot of knowledge, and first and foremost is data. See, we found you have seen the footprint of the village. We have got 600,000 villages in the country. Why not 600,000 footprints are created? That footprint just immediately gives you a snap. What is good in this village? Agriculture is good. What is inferior? Identify them. Let there be an album of in the country, all the footprints, and any planner, any developer can use that data and try to apply the technologies for going for it. That is not difficult, because once you go for crowdsourcing, the institutions, students working, that is my dream of working, and I'm talking to the government of India on this.
I think
Sir,
ISP.
Professor Murali Krishnagar, I have a small question here. Sorry
Go
to
on.
interrupt you.
Please
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Sir, in our college, we have a project called EPICS, Engineering Projects in Community Services. It is basically a voluntary initiative of the student. There is no credit attached to it. We definitely like to associate some pain points or some problems that you are trying to address to be part of the projects, because these students, they start their work in 3rd year and go till final year. That is 2 years they'll work on this project. So hopefully something could be taken up. I'll definitely try to get in touch with you and explore more possibilities in this direction.
Most welcome, sir. Your director is our colleague. You are our colleague.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
So basically, ultimately, what is needed is, so we want a motivated, because my experience during the last with the Smart Village movement, last 3 years or 4 years has shown, we recruit about 150 students, finally end with 20 students. By the time they submit the report, submit the product, it's not that it's difficult. There requires a lot of motivation. See, passion and compassion, empathy. These are the 3 important qualities. It's not that every student has to work on this. There are certain students born for this type of work. Let us capture them. Let us utilize them. That is what exactly is an issue. So we are, our Indian students studying in Scandinavian countries, last 2 weeks before, I had opportunity of interacting with them. They are shown a lot of interest. And now as a product, I'm talking to the Scandinavian universities as a project and go for it. So what is needed is, if the university gives some credit for it, they care it. If they don't give a credit, they don't care it. That ultimately it is practice. Ultimately, they are also looking for some empowerment of marks, of the grades. So without grades, if you say there is no grade for this subject, people will come out of enthusiasm for 2 days, 3 days, and tomorrow one of the HOD says, please submit your assignment. He puts this aside. So please allocate some credit. That is my slogan to any institution today when I approach the universities. It must be a recognized program. If you want it, make it recognizable. I'll give you, it's not that don't recognize it. I'll give you an input. I'll give you a proposal. let it be examined by your team and let it be evaluated, let it be validated, then identify the team, the program is successful, good. Then only give, once the program is accepted, please give credit to the student. That's what exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
So I think I'd like to probably end this interactive session by inviting probably one of the youngest on today's call. We have this triple IT student and a researcher, Sri Sanket. Sanket, would you like to comment or share some observations, how you see it based on what Professor Iyengar has, told us in the last about an hour?
Yeah, Uncle. So yeah, I've been listening and observing.
What has been
Hello?
your experience with research? He suggested to involve all engineering on other students also in a project. You think that's exciting for your age group?
Yeah, like he mentioned, maybe pulling up the right-minded people who are more interested. That's a good way, because different thought and energies can help better the idea, better the process which the program is following.
Good. So at least there's a spark. You'll have to yeah, Chapan Dr. Krishnamurthy.
I don't know whether it is relevant or not. In the movie Maharshi, a weekend farming at the college level by the students I think it's an implementable idea, so that they know what are the difficulties of farming, and also by the produce can be used in their own canteen, if not outside. So even at the school level also they can grow. So, and of course, roof farming is also another thing which was shown in a movie called 36 years age, something. A woman, and she was given to by the president, and for her innovative ideas. So I think while in the four walls we discuss so many things, some people, students also can be incited to what is farming at their own, in the backyard of their own institute. I don't know. That is how to motivate them, and like that. I was really excited by seeing that movie and idea.
Since you use the word incited, I think the students, at least the JNU kind of students, are more excited to talk and debate on TV about Bharat and India than weekend farming. I don't know. I think Professor Iyengar has to work very hard to incite them on the other side, I think. I think Professor M.R. Rao also would agree. Yeah, Chapanda M.R. Rao.
I just wanted to say, one of the problems I found with all this is students, there's no continuous. Students are there for, they take one course, they're there only for 2 months, 3 months, and so on. And they do something useful. But the next group of students don't want to continue with that. They want to do something on their own. And they, like this, projects go on which are not really implemented and taken to. That's what I've been telling them. Why don't you continue? There's no continuity in these projects. They're actually finally coming up with this. Incentives are, the thinking is different. They think that they must do something new, not take something that's already been done and actually implement it. I don't know what the answer is, but I think that is the biggest problem I found in many institutes.
Any comment, Professor Iyengar?
Yeah, it's a valid statement, but as I was telling, we experienced all these problems, but the way we address this issue is, see, students' involvement essentially is one of our objectives. Our objective centers around how we can buy, beg, borrow, not steal. That is our goal. So how I can empower the villager, basically, that is one issue. While doing that, the support of students who are committed, who are motivated, who are passionate, who are compassionate will be always taken. It is wonderful working. And as Dr. Rao said, we give a program for about on a specific pain point for about 12 weeks. After 12 weeks, he will submit a solution and goes away. As he said, when we get the next batch, it's not a long program. We just started only 1 year back, our student recruitment. So we also found that the students are moving in different direction, but nothing wrong. Let it be moving in a different direction. We don't know where the ideas will come. That is one side of the thing. Other one is when we ask a student to join, we'll tell them this is the work already been done. Please look into our website. Please look into our programs. And this is what is the output given. And I send being a director of Indian academic programs, I send a report already worked out, a brief abstract to them. This is the work has been done. How you can improve on these issues. That is how we are trying to address the problems in a specific manner. We don't have a general solution, what has been told by Dr. Rao.
Okay, I guess there are always some impediments in any program or, initiative. But this was wonderful. And for the many new people who are there on today's call from the Nalamothu family, Foswell mother chapter is in Cupertino. As I said, it was formed by Mr. M.L. Swami. We represent Foswell Hyderabad today's meeting. Our founder president, Mr. Venkateswara Tipirneni. He founded this in 2009. And we are a team of people. We have our secretary, Mr. Subhas Chandra Bose, and our joint secretary, Mr. Somasekhar Rao. And, maybe we are just the face of it, but all of them, we work together as a team. So thank you all for joining, and may I now request, Professor Iyenki.
Only 1 minute.
Yeah.
So let me ultimately pay my respects to our revered father of Dr. Nalamothu family, people here, Prasad and other things, Nalamothu Subbarao Garu, and I wish I get all his blessings from heaven for the successful implementation of his ideas, his empathy on the people of this country, in the villages. And I thank you, sir, for your thing, and Venkateswara Garu, Subhas Chandra, and all these eminent persons whom I regularly hear for almost last 3 years' time. And finally, I thank my old friend, Mr. Nalamothu. He's a young friend, not an old friend. Nalamothu, Mrityunjay Prasad, and Dr. Sujata for giving this great, I consider it a great privilege to be with you, to represent on a day of an eminent person. Thank you very much, sir.
May I request Mr. Subhas Chandra Bose, Secretary, to present the vote of thanks, please.
Thank you, Subbarao Garu. President of Foswell Hyderabad, Sri Tipirneni Venkateswara Garu, distinguished speaker, Professor Murali Krishna Iyenki, family and friends of Sri Nalamothu Subbarao Garu, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for joining this 155th monthly meeting on Zoom. We thank the family members of late Nalamothu Subbarao Garu for establishing an annual endowment lecture in his name in the month of November. We also thank Sri Tipirneni Venkateswara Garu, our president, for the annual logistics sponsorship for the month of November every year in the name of his wife, Srimati Nirmala Devi Tipirneni. Some of us recall the acronym PURA, which was the initiative of our former president, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. It stands for providing urban amenities in rural areas. Professor Iyenki's excellent talk today demonstrated how this is eminently possible, more so in these times because of the relative ease of deploying disruptive cutting-edge technologies in rural areas due to better connectivity infrastructure, be it physical or electronic. Dr. Iyenki has so well demonstrated how bringing together scientists, technologists, and academicians can transform our villages and empower our rural youth to be more productive and participate in nation building. It would be a boon for India if this vision is effectively translated into action. Thank you very much, Professor Murali Krishna Iyenki, for delivering such an informative and interesting talk. Thank you, Mr. Sri Sanket, for reading the prayer and for joining us. Thank you, Sri Subramaniam Nalamothu, for introducing our distinguished speaker. We are very happy that the family members of late Nalamothu Subbarao Garu would be a part of today's meeting to cherish his memory. Thank you, Dr. Mohan Chukkapalli, for joining us this evening from your morning in Monroe, New Jersey, and sharing some snippets of late Nalamothu Subbarao Garu's life and work. We propose to continue with these Zoom meetings till further notice. While the rate of vaccination appears to have picked up momentum, please remain cautious and refrain from going out unless inevitable. I say this in every meeting because the danger of the pandemic has not abated and we need to remain very cautious, especially at our age. We hear of a fresh rise in infections in some countries of Europe, so it is prudent to remain vigilant. Our forthcoming meeting in December 2021 will be on Saturday, 18th December at 6:15 p.m. Indian Standard Time. Professor Matthew Varghese, Head of Department of Orthopedics, St. Stephen's Hospital, New Delhi, will speak on reflections on a pandemic, the scientific, ethical, and human dimensions. Once again, it was nice to see you all again, even if it is virtually, for this 155th monthly meeting. This December, we will complete 13 years of Foswell Hyderabad, and we look forward to that milestone. Good night, ladies and gentlemen. Till we meet again on the third Saturday of December, the 18th, for our 156th monthly meeting. Stay home and stay safe. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you all. I'll now close the meeting. Thank you, Professor Iyenki. Nice seeing all your friends from the Nalamothu family. Good night or good day.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.